because it's really difficult to write a melody and then make it fit with a pre-existing text. Although you can write a melody and then form your own text if you're writing your original poetry or text. But I always begin with a text. Also, for the quality of the piece, I don't know what the style or the character or what the piece is going to express until I read and I find poetry that jumps out at me. And I only choose poetry in which, when I'm reading the poem, I hear something. I have this spark, I have this vision for the piece. So that's how I begin.
But to the first part of your question, you were saying, do you sit down at the piano? Do you do this? Do you do this? Yes, all of the above. And you never know. I mean, sometimes it's just like, oh wait, give me a pencil, quick, and you have to just jot something down like right away, with no instrument or anything, and sometimes not even staff paper. I mean, I've been known to jot down notes on a napkin, and in a restaurant. I mean, literally, not often, but 2 incidents of that happening. And just it's always different. It's just always a different approach to it for me. I mean, I whatever. But what you were saying about poetry, like absolutely. Mm-hmm. I really only want to set something that sets my imagination on fire.
So for me, coming into a piece, if it's working with a text, I'm very picky about text and spend a lot of time just living with it and thinking about it, thinking about the rhythms of the words, thinking about the shape, the inflection of the line, and the kinds of harmonies I want to use in any piece as I'm developing it. I spend a lot of time just developing sort of a unique set of harmonies for each piece that I do, and they tend to be like 6-7 note harmony chords, so they're sort of complex, but I try to build a sound world around that, and then ideas come out of those harmonies after I've sort of just sketched a lot of relationships and chord progressions and voicings and things like that.
I write slowly because I try to find something that feels inevitable in terms of what happens next. Like that this has to happen after what not just happened. Not just like, okay, I need more notes to finish the piece, but I try to work and rework until I feel like, yeah, that feels right at a gut level in terms of what's going to happen next.
So what's your best advice for composers? And on the other hand, what's the thing you would say, I never, ever do this, or I would never do that? So what's the thing that you would always do, and what's the thing you would never do?
I think it really works to be well-grounded in technique. Technique is the basis for it. It's like you can't play a Beethoven sonata unless you've practiced your scales. I mean, period. That's just, everybody knows that. It's the same as a composer. And I'm adamant about that. And the other thing that I would tell a student maybe not never to do, is don't change your language in the middle of a composition. Always, you have established that this is your musical language for this piece. Don't suddenly go off in this direction and then this direction, and because you're going to end up with hodgepodge, and you can't find any great pieces of music, I don't think, that do that. It just doesn't work in my estimation.
My biggest advice to young composers is to follow what is engaging and what is interesting to you. So many young composers, they are so timid, they are so scared, they're trying to follow what they should be doing. And I think it's so important that they follow what they love, what fires them up, and what gets them going, and not what they feel like they should be, or they're embarrassed to share this. I try to embolden my student composers to write what they're really passionate about, because if they're passionate about it, then as audience members and performers, we will be too.
So I think that exposure to develop what you said, craft, I think is the first thing that's very important. And the second thing is something that one of my mentors said. He was talking about his own composing. He said, I tried to move myself, meaning he tried to cultivate a feeling for good music and then write something that he felt moved him and hope that would translate to other people. And the third thing, and I teach more choral arranging than I would teach composition and more conducting, but what you said, Carrie, I think is huge, to not give up. A bunch of years ago, Philip Glass came to UVA, and my ensemble sang for him. And we had the chance to hang out and talk to him. And you know what he said? He said, I was strictly middle of my class at Juilliard, but I worked harder than anyone. And so the kind of ethic and to not give up, I think, is just to kind of persist in a way, is part of the value of it. That's really good advice. Yeah, thanks.